The one session you could hear us like right now.
Pre-show.
Yep.
Hello, everybody. How's it going? Welcome, episode 17 of 25 with Tech 25. Let me zoom out here a little bit. Obviously, didn't set the camera up before we started here today. Welcome. I'm Tim Higgins, Secretary for District 25's Technology Department.
I'm Andrew Benton, Data and Systems Specialist.
Chris Lano, Director of Technology.
Cutting off people's hellos.
Yep. Hello.
And welcome. Like I said, episode 17, and we're today talking all about security, privacy, online safety, things like that. It's going to be things that, definitely translate to the classroom, but also things that everybody should just sort of be aware of in everyday life using technology.
Yeah, and as a reminder, if you have questions about anything that we talk about during the show or examples you want to share, please make sure you can tweet us at AHSC25Tech, or you could send it to tech25@sc25.org. We'll try to answer them as we get them. And before we get into some examples, one of the things I wanted to share right away about security and privacy information, especially as we work in the schools and with kids and our own equipment, is if anything ever does come up, if you see any situations that we talk about today, or you've had something happen to you, I think the biggest thing we always need to remind people is to let somebody know as quickly as you can. So if you hear any of the examples that we discussed this afternoon, make sure you talk to your BST or your tech facilitator right away, because as you'll hear, as these things go on, some of the problems we have in the privacy and security world only get worse if you don't let people know. So you've got some great resources right inside your own building. Make sure you take advantage of them first. You don't have to go at any of this alone.
Absolutely. And so, there's definitely a lot of different ways. We're going to kind of touch on some of the big sort of, scams, different ways that people get fished into some of these issues, and where you lose information, whether it's contact information, your own information for identity theft things. And I think, I don't know if Fano's okay with it, I think we might start off with the email route.
Yeah,
which is, a problem. And here on our network, which we'll talk about kind of networks in a little while, and when you're on like school or your home's network compared to just out in the world, certain things, we have certain things in place here that try to filter these things out, but stuff still gets through. It happens every once in a while where Brett has to send out an email that says, look out for this email or that. And so one of the most common ones, email phishing.
Well, yeah, and I think the biggest thing about email phishing or junk email is that most of our browsers and email clients today do a really good job with it. You can train it. But I think there's some keys that we always try to ask people to look at, especially when they'll forward something to us and say, does this look legitimate? That's usually the question as people get more and more skilled at creating authentic looking emails to try to get you to give them information or link in. So I just need to jump over to preview. And what we're going to do is just walk through a couple quick examples. And these are things that, again, you can look at as well when you get an email message that you may not know if it's authentic or legitimate. And I just kind of want to walk through two of them real quick. All right, so here's an example, and this is legitimately from email that I got. Thankfully, it went into my junk email, but you could see it is addressed to me, so it looks like it's legitimate. They know who I am. And this may be something I get for business, that you get an invoice or a request for a payment. But a couple of things, obviously, this one kind of jumps out as having some pretty significant issues about its authenticity. First of all, we do have a misspelling in the last name, or the last name is not capitalized. A vendor that we deal with, usually are pretty good about that. The second thing I would notice right away is I don't see a company name here. I don't see this idea that, who this is actually coming from. And then the last piece is this idea that there's this reconciliation that they would want, meaning that we owe them money. Now, again, we see a lot of these invoices or requests for payments come in, but those would be things that would jump out right away. And secondly is this idea that this email contains a zip file. And so in essence, what the emailer wants me to do is to double click on that, and that would open up then supposedly an invoice, but in this case it would be either a website they'd want me to go to, or it could install some kind of malware or virus onto my machine. So obviously this is one that I want to skip. Also, to drawing your attention to the idea that there's a comma misplaced in the total. But most importantly, I want to show you that you can go in and on any email, you can click next to the actual recipient name and you can find out where it's really coming from. So even if this had a company's name on it that they were smart enough to put in, you know, Acme Industries, I can see that the real email address that this is coming from is from telcomosa.net. Again, no vendor that I know, nobody I would ever deal with. I can skip this. I know this is a fraudulent, illegitimate email. One other thing that I could show you real quick is in my junk email, just to validate this, not only did it come from Yolanda in that case, I also have an invoice request from Marcy, from Brian, oh no, not from Brian, from William, from Johanna. Each of these emails are worded the same. It's just a mass-produced email to try to fish, as Tim was talking about, some information or to get me to open that attachment. Attachments are always the key.
And as you're saying, so we've heard a couple terms first. So for anybody who feels kind of overwhelmed by the fact that you've probably heard all these crazy terms and we don't know particularly what they mean, what would you say that your definition of phishing email, malware, what does all of that mean specifically?
Well, I would say in the term phishing, you know, in general terms would be they are trying to throw out, in essence, the idea of getting you to reel in for that information or to get that information and reel it in. So in this case, they're sending out this email to you to get you to click on that attachment, think that it's authentic, and that, in essence, it will give them the gateway or the lure to pull in your information. Malware is a little different. Again, it's something that could be used to infect your computer, to be able to set up a pathway for them to take information off of your machine and into their hands. So the phishing is the process of getting information from you, and then either the malware or spyware, those different terms are the actions they want to take for actually removing information directly from your computer. And that kind of goes into, so the first example that I showed really, you know, kind of stood out as having some issues. The second one that I want to show is a little bit more sophisticated, and they go on from here. So here's another example, a little bit better. They use the logo in this case of Apple. They actually use their name. And so this again is looking at, hey, I've received a message from Apple. They've used my school email address. Again, that's a nice touch. And I've got a couple links in here. Now again, right away I see that there's an issue with the subject line. I don't know what United iApple is. It would never come in from a company like that. And the idea that they use this iApple team is a concern. But again, you can see this is a little bit more sophisticated layout where it makes it look like it's an email from Apple. One thing I want to show you about this is, in this case, they want you to click on this link to sign in and view supposedly this authentic message. But in essence, what they do is it initiates a download to your machine, which I'm not going to do. But I can show you on our browser what we have the ability to do is, again, check the email. So this is reply online at cus.apple.org. So that's not an authentic Apple address. And finally, what we can look at is the link itself. What's behind that link? So in my email client, I can actually go in and I can do a preview of it without actually opening it. So in this case, there's no message here. There's no place to sign in. It really was trying to take me off to this website, which is an out of the United States, so Romanian, I believe, website that, again, could install a piece of software that would be damaging to my computer, or it may ask me to fill in a bunch of information that I don't need. So again, not every email client has it, but yours might. And again, it's the attachment of the links that they're always trying to get you to go into. And those are the things that we want to avoid. So
right, and right on the screen, if you highlight just down below where there's even, like he said, a little more professional, it says prefer to stop receiving these emails. Unsubscribe here and click here. That unsubscribe here could, or probably is, also a scam link. So while you don't want to receive anything from people like this anymore, please definitely don't click unsubscribe here. Don't click anything on the email.
Absolutely, and that's a great idea. And so these are some things to look out for. Put it in your junk, mark it as spam. Your computer will learn and get better and better about these as they go on. Now, one thing as we kind of transition off of the email page is you may want to be emailing something yourself that you want to be secure and make sure that it gets delivered to the right hands and password protected. I'm using this program called Preview now, one of the best programs on the Mac, without a doubt. It does so many things, and it even does this. So let's say this was a sensitive information I wanted to send to my doctor or I wanted to send to a colleague, but I didn't want it just to be able to be opened by anyone. I wanted to password protect it. Most programs, as we're going to show you a couple, have the ability to do this. In Preview, I can export, and when I select PDF, I get this option down here called Encrypt. I can click on that, and now I can put in a password, verify that password, and now this is and once I save it, I have a password protected PDF that I can send off to somebody, and they would have to know what the password is to be able to open it on the other end. So that's just one way to secure a document while emailing. Tim's going to talk about a couple of other ways with that and some other tips about safety and security.
Thank you, Chris. So talking about sending a document that has a password protection on it. Now, one thing, again, we'll also talk a little bit about here shortly is this whole idea of having, having all of your accounts online, passwords, using nice, secure passwords with capital letters, numbers, with symbols, things like that. And we understand, because we live it as well, that when you start having all of these accounts, which you need for everything from ordering a sandwich from Jimmy John's all the way up to your banking and all of that, it's a lot of stuff to keep track of. And so I know, one thing we'll mention is sort of the different applications that you can save your passwords in. But I do know that a lot of people also just save them in different documents on their computer. And, whereas that's not maybe the greatest of solutions for this is to have a whole list of every password for every account in one place. I know that, we can't change every behavior all at once, especially. But what at least we can do is kind of give you hopefully a tool to be able to protect that information. There's all sorts of documents that we have that we may want to protect. And so I just opened up Pages. This is one of those sort of documents where you'd be able to go in, and as we see right here, in the file menu itself, we can set a password on it. And it's just like setting up a password for anything else. You have to type it in, verify it. You can type in a password or hint, and then you can even tell it to remember it inside of your the keychain inside of the Apple operating system to remember it for later. I would suggest just putting in a password that you'll just remember. So if you have documents, whether it's spreadsheets, whether it's Word documents that have just your accounts passwords listed, please password protect them. If you have any other documents with any other sort of sensitive information, I would suggest please password protecting it. And again, I really think that, and one thing too, this whole episode and our sort of set of lessons here is not to scare anybody, because as I'm going to talk about here in a second, one of the biggest tactics that these people and companies and organizations use to try to get your information from you is fear in general. We kind of just want to give you a little bit more of a focused look when you're taking a look at things, because it's all in the details. You'll notice when things are just a little bit off if you kind of know specifically where to look. So don't find this to be this overwhelming, terrifying thing. Just, and again, that's why we're here. You can, again, tweet at us, send us emails, call us, show up here, ask questions. We want you to be aware of the things to look for and the things to kind of watch out for. So you can password protect. You can actually, with most documents, whether it's Pages, Numbers, Excel, or Word, you can password protect all of those different types of documents, usually right from the File menu or from the Save As menu in those particular programs. So one thing that is happening fairly recently, while web browsing is something like this showing up. You're surfing the internet, all of a sudden, some giant warning, your computer's infected, shows up. There's usually a loud sound associated with it. And it's meant to really just kick you into this panic mode of wondering what, you know, you're just looking through Pinterest for some cool little craft to do with your niece or grandchild, and this thing pops up in your face telling you that your computer's infected. Call this number because there's tech support that can help you. Again, this is sort of one of those sort of phishing ideas, is that they're just trying to get you into a state of panic enough to call this number, where you'll talk to an actual live person, typically, who will more than likely try to just sell you something, whether it's a piece of software that you don't need, or sell you a piece of software that, once installed, can then also be a piece of malware, spyware that'll take your information to be used in terms of more of a like identity theft situation. This is one of those things that it kind of ends up locking up your screen, which is even one step further of setting in that panic. It's typically not as easy as just clicking the little red X in the upper left-hand corner. And so if you ever get into that situation where one of these type of things, it's not going to look exactly like that every time. That's one of the things, is this sort of stuff changes all the time. But if you get into a situation where you're on a screen telling you that bad things are happening on your computer, you need to buy something, you need to call somebody, but you're locked into it, force quit is usually the first thing. Don't click on anything. Don't call anybody unless it's one of us here at Tech 25 or contacting one of your building tech people. You can easily quit out of programs. Usually, if the whole thing isn't frozen, you can hold and click down on the icon in the dock. And if the browser itself is frozen, this will show up as force quit, not just quit, and it'll allow you to force shut the program down. You can actually also do that if the dock is not available at the time. You can also come up to your Apple menu. There's an option up here called force quit. We'll list all of the programs that are currently running. You can simply select one and force quit it from here as well. So once you force quit, you can open up, the browser again, and at that point in time, as things are starting to load, if your tabs from before are starting to show up, I would close out of all of them. Make sure that tabs aren't going to relaunch into the same program, because you'll just end up in the same situation. And often, and actually with a browser like Chrome, it'll say you force quit this program for a reason. It'll be usually a yellow banner across the top. Do you want to restore your last session? No, you do not want to restore anything. And actually, we want to go another step further, and we want to clear our cache and clear our cookies. Again, two terms that you may have heard in the past and not necessarily know exactly what it is. All that really means is that your browser, the program that is your browser, is saving bits of information from these websites to make it easier for you to use it in the future, to be able to, this is where different preferences get saved, passwords, things like that, which, in sites that you want to interact with, that's a helpful, great thing. But in sites where you don't, it could keep bringing up problems and keep, annoying you with different messages that you do not want. So if we go in Chrome, upper right-hand corner to the three vertical lines, or three horizontal lines stacked vertically, you click on Settings, and down here at the bottom, or actually I'm already opened into it, so there's usually an option, I'll close it up, Advanced Settings. So typically when you go into Settings, it'll just be this small window, and if we click on Show Advanced Settings, we have this section here called Privacy. And right here is a button, Clear Browsing Data. And in here, we'll see that it'll have, clear your cookies and plugin data, cached images and files. This is the thing that we would want to clear out completely to hopefully forget any associations that your browser has made with those pop-ups with any sites that you don't want to be a part of. And so you would click on this Clear Browsing Data after you've set this up here to the beginning of time, which just means as long as you've used your this browser, it'll clear out everything. And you'll be able to start fresh. And so that's if you run into one of those situations here in the browser. Now, if you feel like something's been installed onto your computer and you would like to scan and figure out if we're going to get rid of that, on our district assigned computers, we have a program on there that actually scans your computer for malware, for spyware, and allows you to eliminate it. And so the way to access that is you're going to click on your Spotlight search in the upper right-hand corner, and you're going to type in managed software, and it'll come up as either managed software update, or on computers that have been updated to the newest operating systems, it'll come up as managed software center. It's the same sort of idea. It'll bring up either this little window, which is the normal update window, or it'll bring up a window that looks like the App Store. But you'll have the same option. So if we click on optional software here, it'll also be optional software in the Managed Software Center. We have this program called Malwarebytes, anti-malware software. And if you click the checkbox, we update to the software list. It'll download this piece of software. It will install it, add it into your programs, which you can access by the Launchpad, or you can access by opening a Finder window and going into Applications. And what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to launch that program as it is shown up here. You'll accept it. Type in your password to install it. And then you just hit the scan button, and you'll see it'll go through its little process. It'll show, you'll see little names of all the current known malware pieces of software. They'll show up here, and then if it brings up anything, it'll show up in red, and it'll ask if you want the piece of software to delete it. It's as simple as that. And another little thing that's built into the operating system is here in System Preferences. So sometimes when you're downloading programs, what we want to happen is we want you to get a warning that we don't want programs to just be downloaded without any sort of oversight. And so here in Security and Privacy, under General, there's this option here to allow apps downloaded from anywhere. And so if I would suggest everybody go into your preferences, go into Security, into General, make sure that this is not selected, so that any program can't just be installed without asking you for permission first. You know, with pretty much with any safety, security, privacy, you're gonna have to give up a little bit of convenience. Things aren't gonna just show up right away, but that goes miles and miles in terms of your secure life, where you are alleviating a lot of headaches and issues in the future by just having some of these things turned on, reading a couple extra pop-up windows, and giving your permission where needed. So that's sort of how you deal with any sort of malware just being installed automatically with that phishing email, that scam that's kind of going around right now. Your computer's been affected. And so I think we're kind of just going to talk about a couple other little best practices.
Really just 2 minutes of rambling out of me. Just basically, you guys all know that our lives have gone completely digital now. And while it seems like everything is happening online, it's really important to note that companies are just simply not going to be asking you for data. So going back a little bit to Chris's thing and the phishing and all that, they're just not. And if they are, we saw a really neat little phrase in our research for the show today, and it was slow down the conversation. So let's say that you're actually speaking to the person, or so ask the questions, find out how legit it is. It probably isn't. Nobody's going to ask you for information via email, or especially something that just pops up online. So that's just really general. Just these companies aren't going to do that. And just another quick little addendum to Chris's part. If you know how easy it was for us to just go get like a US bank logo or whatever, like sometimes just the images on those emails make it seem so legit. They make it look like the emails you've received from your bank in the past. So it's not legit. They're not going to ask you for information. Just general, you'll see it everywhere, and I'm going to give you a couple links, but just keeping your machine updated, and not just your machine, but your phone. All these sites that you'll go to and you'll research through are talking. They have a whole section on your Mac and your machine, but they also have it on your phone, because obviously they've turned into almost better machines. When you're in a when you're in an open Wi-Fi area, it's not your home private network. It's not our district wireless network. Don't do any banking. Don't do anything sensitive. You know what the sensitive things are. Don't do it when you're at Starbucks. Don't do it at Panera. Don't do it if you're on a general Wi-Fi. There is an area where you can go into even, Tim's going to jump to it now, where you can go onto your machine and you'll see he's going to open network preferences.
Which you can do just right from that Wi-Fi menu.
Just right from the Wi-Fi menu. And you'll see all of the Wi-Fi networks you've connected to.
And so once you're in here, you'll click on Advanced. And then here, we have a whole list of our preferred networks. And this particular list looks exactly how we would hope that any of our in-district computers would look. Now, yours, which you take to and from places, are going to have some extra things in here. But really, you don't want too many more than our district networks as well, and then your home network. The process you would go through if, say, this one that is T25 Ivy Hill, say that was, you know, I don't know, out at the park free, we can click on it to highlight it, and then click on the minus sign, and it will remove it from that list, which means that your computer won't just search through this list to find, like, to automatically connect to networks. If there's anything in here that's questionable that you're not used to seeing every day, it's not your home network, it's not a school network, I would suggest to delete it out of there.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Remember having your browser, remember the links. I know we all know how nice that is, but it really is a bad idea, and you should cease that operation if you're letting the browser remember your passwords. If somebody were to get your machine, they would be able to. So us, for instance, in some of these systems that we have, where if they could just click twice into all of the student data, that would obviously not be a good thing, or teacher data or financial data, whatever it might be. Just think about how easy it would be for somebody who had your machine, because you had the saved password in your browser, to just jump onto any system that you use every day. So just no reason for that. StaySafeOnline.org is a really nice site. One of the things I like about it is it's got a lot of good tips, but it's also got an area for free security checkups and tools. So there's like 15, 20 different tools that they have direct links to that you can use to clean up your machine, or just see if there's anything going on. And they're all vetted and legit. You know, I mean, imagine doing a search for, hey, clean up my machine. In general in Google, like the things that you would get and the scams that would actually be out there. So I StaySafeOnline.org, Macworld.org for protecting your Mac. There's so much on security. Google has their own in-depth security site. Facebook does, Twitter does. So doing some good Google searches is always a thing. The one thing that we said we were going to come back to, and this is the last thing I'll say, is this idea of a password app. And the password app is, because it's terrible to have 500 different passwords for your different systems. You should have different ones. And password apps such as 1Password, I think Wallet's dead, right?
Yeah.
So 1Password, we'll stick with that. Definitely look into it. You just have 1Password to get into that tool. It can be on your phone and on your machine, and it's as simple as putting your 1Password in to see your others. To see your 500 passwords that you need. So really, that's some sort of general talk. Yeah, anything else to?
No, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head with this idea. A lot of it is common sense, but in the moment, we don't always subscribe to it, and we do see it. You know, I think that's the other thing that we need to talk about is, this isn't stuff that just happens at home or when you're at Starbucks. We get calls, and it's increasing in the idea that these things are happening. And password protecting, making sure you have a passcode on your phone and on your computer, all of those things, they take a little bit of time, as Tim said, but the flip side is you can lose information or put other things in a compromised situation. So I just would want to end with a story of, you know, we had this conversation here where after this situation happened, someone at one of our buildings got a call from a live person who was impersonating another profession and saying that they would receive an email to get a password reset reminder, and that when they received that, that they would be calling back and would need that because they were supposedly helping somebody else. And in the moment, it seems legit. It seems like, hey, they said that they were from somebody from the village or in Arlington Heights.
There was a police officer.
Yeah, like an Arlington Heights police officer, and that they were trying to help somebody. And in the moment, you're not necessarily thinking it through until you're like, wait a second, I'm getting a password reset for somebody else who I can't verify, and I'm giving this information to them. And it's those things, whether it's the big pop-up window, the call from somebody else, the link in an email, that you really do just have to think, what's somebody after? Did I initiate this? Am I seeking that information, or are they seeking it from me? And then, as Andrew pointed out, tons of resources to secure your world. And I think then we'll all be better off in just taking care of our identity and private information. So again, you see it here. You talk to your BST, you talk to your tech facilitator, you call over to us. We'll try to help you out. But it's that common sense and those little steps that you can take to make sure that you're at least enhancing your security and your privacy while online.
It's not a flashy subject, you know. It's really not. But just picture an environment. Just picture the possibilities of somebody grabbing sensitive information about yourself or about the students or anything else. Just imagine what that might end up being like. Maybe some of you actually know somebody who has gone through it. It's terrible. So just stay secure, stay safe, everybody.
Absolutely. And we are here to help you with that anytime.
Absolutely.
Tech25 at st25.org. Or just stop in.
Sure.
Cool. Thank you very much.
At this time.
Right. Yeah. We're going home now.
But thank you guys again for watching. Yep. Stay safe.
Cool. Thank you very much. See you guys later.
Yeah.